All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to CEJA office hours session. Sounds like someone. Okay. Today we're going to start with a Q&A, and then in the second half we will provide a demo on walking through the grantee details and training programs section in the system. But we'll start it off. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat or unmute and ask away.
Hi, yes, actually I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I am currently working on the navigator side of things for Senior Services Plus, and I had the reports that we're submitting, the numbers have been different than the report that I'm seeing on Illinois WorkNet itself. And mainly what that has to do with is it seems like whenever a student was transferred to us, it's counting that towards our numbers, even if we had nothing to do with it. So I'm just wondering like how I would go about fixing that, because it's showing people that we had nothing to do with on our report.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to talk with the regional administrators because currently in the system, once a customer is transferred to, if it's a new navigator or grantee or hub, the one that currently is tied to that customer will show up in their reports, but we'll have to kind of talk through with the regional administrators on how, if there's a case where, someone was enrolled in one program, dropped out and transferred to another one and enrolled, in the second, and, in a different program, wanting to, make sure that that first, original grantee, receives credit for that. So that's something that we'll have to talk through with the regional administrators to figure out how we want to, capture that or reflect that in the reports. We also have something our programmers are currently working on. It came up during yesterday's technical call that there was a discrepancy in the report between applicants and enrolled, and that's something that our programmers are working on and going to push out a fix for that. And with that fix, that would be updated automatically. There wouldn't be anything that the grantees, hubs, or navigators would have to do to make sure that the customers are in the correct rows there.
Okay. I did have one more question just because I'm fairly new to entering data on Illinois WorkNet. Whenever we're entering an event that we went through, like our outreach coordinator will go to an event and get signatures and get participants signed up for the program. Would that be considered an engagement outreach, or would that be considered both of those whenever you're going into the partner engagement tab? Because both options seem like the right answer, but I wasn't sure which one it was.
Yeah, let me go over here and see if Natasha or
there's been a lot of discussion on that, and I believe I don't know if Larry's available to, or Michelle or anybody is available to comment, but I know that they've been working through, some of those details of like what is outreach versus engagement, and we'll be making updates to the system based on their, what their decision is, and they'll be providing more guidance on that as well. I don't know if any of the REs are available and want to elaborate on that or not.
We are. Thank you, Natasha. We're still in discussions about what to do with this. Just know that our purpose is to try to simplify it and reduce the amount of entry that is needed, and also to ensure that any contacts for um, employers for the purposes of assisting the transition process, that those are easily shared between Navigator and Hub. So that's basically what we're talking about, but we haven't quite come to a conclusion on it yet. But we will definitely let the network know before any changes ultimately are made.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or things you'd like for us to go over here?
David, but before, this is Larry again. Sorry. Before we move on, I did also want to mention that in our discussions about this particular page, we also came to the conclusion that the some of the options that are in the drop down, particularly when it comes to types of events, types of engagement, that some of those various options may be best derived from some of the grantee users. And so you may be reached out to by myself or Nate or Michelle, depending on which region you're in, just to get your feedback, because we want to make sure that whatever is in these drop downs are things that you actually need and use. And Nate or Michelle, if I mischaracterized that, please let me know.
Sounds good, Larry.
Good.
All right, any other questions before we get into our demo portion? All right, well, if not, we'll go ahead and take a look at things here. Let me, a couple things here. Okay, so let me see here. All right, so we're going to take a look at the grantee details and training programs tabs in the system, and those can be accessed with this provider info icon, the one that looks like a folder here. And we'll start with the grantee details page. And let's see, I'm logged in as a Workforce Hub grantee here. So we'll select our organization and filter. And there's going to be some fields that we don't quite really have to worry about, but we'll go over the notable ones that we're going to be using for CEJA. In this grantee info section, we have the basic information here, street address, some other fields that you can edit by selecting this edit button and updating accordingly. We also have for accepting applications, yes or no. And if it gets to a point where you're no longer accepting applications, you can select no. And the system will indicate to others that you're not accepting applications and they won't be able to direct customers your way. But I believe currently everyone in the system has, yes here. And so, yeah, you could make the changes here and click this save button off to the side over here. Scrolling down, we have this associated grants section. You can add some grant information here. This is just the number, date range, and the grant amount. I don't believe this is currently really tied to much else in the system, but as a reference point, if you'd like to add that in there, you can. So that is optional. You don't have to worry about, the staff completing required training section. In the training programs section, we'll get to adding the programs in a moment, but this is where they would populate. And then locations, instructors, and work sites, we don't really have to worry about those. I think the big one on this page is this service section. And so for workforce hubs, we want to make sure that we have, for reporting purposes, the bridge training service that you have down here. And then for Climate Works, we'll want to make sure that we have the pre-apprenticeship service. But we have a list of services here, and the services that are shown here are available when you're in the customer's career plan and you go to add a service here. So we have 56 over here and 56 over here. And if there's some services that you're not going to be using, we have some job specific ones. Yeah, here we go, job specific training. So for example, if you knew in your program for workforce hubs that, if you don't have an energy auditor training program, you can remove this. And really just kind of a way to clean up so you can, the services you're using are the ones available here. And if you do, by mistake, remove a service, we can work with you to add that back in. But yeah, so this is really, as you're reviewing this, just making sure, if you think a service is missing, we can, work with you to determine if we need to add that in there. So then we'll go on to the training programs tab, which is right up here. And let's see, so we'll select, Richland, and we'll filter, and we can see 2 programs that we've submitted before that have been approved. And to add a program, we'll click the add button there. And then we'll just fill out this form. And so this first question is, what type of program do you offer? And with Climate Works, we've recommended selecting this pre-apprenticeship program, and for workforce hubs, the career pathway option here, as a way to move forward as you're adding the programs in here. And then we'll fill out the information. And so we'll select this button here for submit training program for approval. And we're going to be entering this program information in here. And one of the reasons that we have that is if we go to edit a customer service, for example, we can tie services to which program is getting entered. And so currently we have 2 down here. Those are the 2 that we saw a moment ago that were submitted and approved, but we're going to be adding a 3rd one here as well. And when we make the selection and save it, then any credentials that are added that are tied to that program that are not hard coded in here, like these 4, they'll appear as selectable options, and it'll help you save time as you're entering credentials. Right, so then we'll go back over here and enter in training program information. So let's see, program ABC. We'll enter description in here, just get some placeholder text. And then we'll enter the provider name and the address information. And then we have these code lookups here. This first one is for SIP. And then we have SOC codes and NAICS codes, and they all operate similarly. We have this link here. If we click, it will open up a keyword search. We can enter a keyword or two, or we can select this button to pull back all the available codes. And then we can, in the second text box here, enter some text and kind of filter this down even further. And so we can select the one that best aligns with our program here. And we'll see that that number gets added in. And we'll enter the time to complete in weeks. Let's see. And then for training program career pathway, again, this would be selecting the one that most aligns with the training program that you're adding in here. And then we have another code lookup here. These are the SOC codes. Right, the same way. And that'll pull in the code and then also the target occupation. And if you'd like to tweak this a little bit, you certainly can. And then the last code lookup, the NAICS code, again, that will operate the same way as the previous lookups. And so we can make our selection there. And then we have our enrollment information. So we have what's your projected number of participants to serve. And then this program contact, the names you'll see in here, those will be just those who have access, who have the same access as you in the system. So if you don't see, a member of your team in here, that means, they don't have access to the CEJA system and your organization. So we'll select that there, and then we'll enter the minimum age for this occupation. And then we also have a text box for other notes. And so once we have that filled out, we'll click the button to go to the next page. And this will be our baseline requirements. These are optional to fill out. Not required for everyone, but we'll just go through and show what questions there are. So we have, does this agency offer remediation or bridge program? So workforce hubs will say yes, but then we also have checkboxes and buttons for target audience, institution sector type. What are the goals of this program? How is this training offered? And what are the minimum requirements to enter the program, if there's any requirements for math, reading, degrees, or language. And then a few other questions for what is the lifting requirement for program entry, the standing requirement. Are participants required to sit for long periods of time in the related job? If there's any tests that the participants are required to pass, any drug tests, other vision, appearance, taste or smell requirements. And then just a few more. Can a participant have more than 3 motor vehicle ticket instances in the past 3 years? Is a valid driver's license required for the program? What kind of background check is required? How can the training program be accessed? And what are the primary languages spoken for the program? Again, this tab is optional, but you can fill that out if you like. And we'll click the button to go to the next page, which is the last section here. And this is where we can add credentials. And so we'll see here under credentials, add and submit request for Commerce to approve the credential. So we'll click this here and that'll open up a window. And we'll just fill out this information here. So this is show A, we'll say 1525. And then we'll select the credential type in the drop down here. The institution or owner of the credential. and then a description of the credential here. Put that in here. And these next 4 fields, these are all optional, but if there's any level of degree, any occupations, industries, or subject areas that are tied to this, you can start to enter those in so you can see what options are available. If you'd like to add more, you can. But that's just how this functionality works over here for these next 4 questions. But again, these are optional and not required. But then the last question here is, does the customer earn this credential or get prepared to earn this credential upon completion of the program? And so we have, participants prepared to earn the following credential, or they will earn it upon successful completion. And so once we have our credential saved or entered, we can click save, and we'll see that that gets added in here. And let me just add another one too. If you have a second one that you would like to add, add those in there. And we have the credentials there. And if we need to make changes to these, we can click the View Details tab and make the necessary changes and click Save. But a very important thing to note is once you have this entered here, you'll definitely want to click this Finish button because that will save everything that we've added in there. So we'll click Finish. And then we'll go back to our Training Programs tab and we'll select Richland Council and filter, and we should see I'm sorry. We can see our program here, and we have this icon over here, and it's pending. And let's see, let me get another screen here. Go ahead and approve this. That way we can see it at work on the career plan. So this is Richland Council. Okay, so approved, and then to approve the credentials as well. And so then once this is submitted, you can let your RAs know, and they'll be able to come in and approve this. So if we filter this again, we can see that the program has been approved. And if we just go back real quick to our credentials tab, we'll see that these credentials have been approved as well. And so if we see this at work, we can, let me refresh this customer's page over here and find a service. Let's see, so let's select the Energy Basic Services, or service, right? And let's see, we'll plug in some of this information here. So plan start date, plan completion date, average weekly hours, let's say started. And then over here on the service provider tab, we can select Richland Council. And then this third option, this is the program that we just added and approved. We'll make that selection there. And we'll click to update. Leave our case note. And then when this refreshes, if we go to our Earn Credentials tab, those 2 credentials that we added, credential A and B, they are selectable here. And if we select this button here, that information that we entered for that credential, so we have the name, the credential type, the institution, and the description, that'll all populate over here. So then we just need to select the credential source and then the date it was attained. and click save. And if you needed to, make changes to that credential, if there was something in the that you wanted to correct, you can come back here and make those changes. But you can also make changes to the credential, like I said, in the credentials tab within the training program. But this, it helps you save time if you're adding credentials that are, specific to your program, because otherwise, and you can add, you can, add them manually, but just for consistency's sake and to save time, that way you don't have to, enter all of these fields again and again for each customer. You can just select the button here, select that drop down and the date it was earned, and then that credential gets saved. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Oh, and I will point out that when we come back over here, program ABC, projected participants, we have 125, but because that customer that we just added as a service provider and made that selection and save over here, we now have a 1 populating for the actual enrollment for the program. See, I think that's everything I wanted to go over for the grantee details and training programs. So yeah, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions, or Natasha, if there's anything to note that I may have overlooked, just let me know. We can go over that too. But does anyone have any questions? See, you got your hand raised, Julie.
I have a question that's not directly related to what you just covered, but is kind of in that same area. So I'm looking at the pages where we would enter partners under the partner engagement and management. So if I'm adding, for example, a union, and it asks if they have apprenticeships, but those apprenticeships don't have any deadline, like any application dates. I know some only allow them at certain times, but in this particular case, they don't have, they take them on a rolling basis. They have a rolling enrollment. So the application due by and the application reviewed by dates are really not applicable. So what I did with the one that I entered was put in 01/01/2000 on both of those, just to put a date in there. But what do I really need to put in there, because they don't have specific dates for application?
Yeah. I guess I'll open that up to the RAs. I'm thinking, a possible update we could do is to make, and for example, like in this case, that we could make those date fields optional. That way, you could save it without having to enter a date. But I'll
And the same with the apprenticeship openings per year.
Yeah, that one too. Oops. But yeah,
So that would just be again, that question. It asks all 3 of those, and they're required. And based on the website information which is what I'm using, that would be available to our students, there are no deadlines, there are no dates, there's no information in how many they're accepting any of that on there.
right. Yeah, Larry, Nate, Michelle, we can talk about it on our call if we'd like to, but
yeah, you can get back to me on that. I just wanted to bring that up as something that still trying to line up.
yeah, of course.
Is that what others are seeing as well? Anybody else is having same issue? We'll have a talk about it, Joyce. Thank you.
I see a question in the chat. I'm getting help desk tickets for career planners not having access to CEJA. I will have to take a look at those. If they were submitted a couple hours ago, I don't believe I've seen them. And since we do have a little bit of time, I do want to just note, because it's come up before, when submitting a help request ticket, let's see here, so when you're logged into the system, you can click your username up here and select help request. And then that will take you to our page here where you can submit a help request. And we can fill out the information here. So that's, we can enter a title, a description. You can include screenshots in here. You know, if you're trying to add a user into the system and you get an account conflict, you know, you can send the usernames. That helps, you know, identify, you know, what contacts, or sorry, what accounts that, you know, we need to take a look at and, you know, update those conflicts so you can get that customer added into the system. But I'd say the most important part, just to make sure that I see the help request tickets, is to select, you know, either CEJA Climate Works, Energy Transition Navigators, or Workforce Hubs. Because if it's any other option here, I will not kind of be notified that there is a help request. And so it is kind of filtered for, you know, our users and, you know, which programs they're using. But we'll just go ahead and fill out the rest of this here. So we'll select Workforce Hubs and say in our subcategory, the one that kind of most aligns with it, program administration here. And you can copy other team members to the help request ticket. Then you can enter in name, email address. Are you a partner / provider? You can select your LWIA, your phone number. Oh, looks like I missed a field here. So we'll enter in our organization. And then if it's related to a specific customer, you can select yes and enter that customer's email and name. And let's see, and then you can select, you know, the browser too if it's a issue. And then we have an additional text box down here that's optional, but create. And then if we go to my tickets, we can see, you know, when you access the help request system, we have this icon off to the side for my tickets. And then we can see, you know, as I follow up and respond to tickets, there'll be, you know, kind of a history here, you know, the conversation thread, and the status will be updated as well. But I'm just going back to the chat here. But yeah, if you don't have access to the system, you can just send me, or if there's other members of your team that don't have access to the system, I just added my email in the chat. You can, you know, either submit a help request ticket or just, you know, send me an email, and then I can, you know, make sure that they do have access to the system. But first, well, I'm actually talking about that. They will need to create an account on WorkNet. So on illinoisworknet.com, if we click this sign up icon, they'll need to fill out this form here. And then when that's completed, if, you know, just let me know, and then I can, you know, grant access to that staff member. Question on behalf of an agency. I'm not sure I'm understanding. Cassie, if you'd like to unmute or send me an email after this call, we can do
Hi,
that as well.
hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. So yeah, I'm with the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. So I'm getting help desk tickets on behalf of agencies. Um, so one agency does not have access to the database, but I think you just helped me to respond to his question or her question to see if they have they registered for Illinois WorkNet. So I'll see what they say as far as their response, yes or no. And then I'm also getting, I think you went over this earlier about updating training providers in Illinois WorkNet and adding and removing like locations. So I think you went over there earlier, right?
Yeah. If maybe, yeah, so we added, the service provider, the training program over here that we could select on service provider. And if we needed to, make a change, maybe this, customer is actually in this program, we can make that update over here too.
And what does the agency have to provide? Because it's easy to send an email. What do they need to provide when they are asking us to remove a location and then add what do they need to provide? What documentation?
Documentation, I would defer to the RAs on that.
One thing, thanks, David. One of the things that immediately comes to mind is that the work plan, which kind of is the snapshot of how the program will be implemented, including the training programs that are offered, staff that are working on the programs, and also the locations where training will take place. So if changes need to take place to actual locations of training, you might want to connect with the RA, and I think you're with the partnership.
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, we may need to have a discussion about that just to make sure that we have the same understandings of where all the trainings are taking place, and then you can go ahead and put that in the system.
Okay. And we, the partnership, have access to do that.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
you should.
Okay. Okay. Just checking. Thank you.
And that is correct, right, David? I mean, since the agencies that she referenced are their sub-grantees, and so the partnership should have the capability of changing those addresses, right? As the parent organization.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions or things you'd like for us to go over on the call today?
It's Julie again. Sorry, I have lots of questions, but I'll try not to ask them all here. I'm really working on trying to get our Illinois WorkNet so that it is matching up correctly for reporting purposes. And so one of my questions is, and I think I asked this before, so I apologize if you're told me to wait, is on where it's getting the information to determine the other barriers, as that's related to their educational level and their literacy. And where's that information being pulled from? I think right now it's just if you mark other barriers, it automatically puts them in that category. But that just because that's marked doesn't mean it's specifically related to those fields, those issues. I don't think that on the survey that it actually asked the question. So this ask it here, but when you go in on the intake, it only says other barriers, and it doesn't define that. So we've got a lot of our students from early on that had that marked, but it wasn't related to language barriers or low educational attainment.
Hang on, let me go over here. Actually find someone who's already an inquiry. So is your question kind of where is this kind of being reflected in reporting?
Yes. So the question says, do you have other barriers to employment? And there's no definition of that. And so, but it appears that that particular yes is what it is being used to answer the question on whether they have low education or low literacy. And that doesn't specify that on that question. So there could be people that are marked as other barriers, but that it's not specifically related to what they seem to be looking for, which is language and education. So I've always tracked that separately for our report, but now it needs to be somehow aligned with workNet. So my question is, if that's where it's pulling from, is that other, can it be pulled from where we enter their test scores instead to get the answer to that question?
I think we'll have to talk with internally about that.
I kind of figures you did, but I wanted to bring it up so we can get it on the table.
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate
All right.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I know this question here was at least, tied, as an eligibility factor.
Yeah, I think the way it's right now, what it's getting at is, does the participant have other barriers that fall into this kind of large basket of other barriers? So I think that's all we're tracking at this time. So I'm not sure if that answers the question or not. But.
Are there any other questions? Well, if not, we can end early. I will get the recording posted to our the partner guide pages. And well, I guess before we go here, I will if Larry, Nate, Michelle, if there's anything you'd like to add or
Hey,
ask.
David, I'm sorry. This is Jenny with UCM. Who do we contact to update the website for our information?
Do well. I'll ask. Are you talking about the CEJA kind of public facing website
Yeah.
that we're working on? You can send that to me, but I'd say please be sure to copy your regional administrator on that email as well. We can
Thank
get
you.
that updated. Yeah.
Thank you.
problem. Nate, Michelle, Larry, is there anything you'd like to add before we go to lunch?
I don't have anything additional to offer today. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and end early. But like I said, we'll get this posted to the partner guide. And if anything comes up, please reach out to us. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.